Okay, first things first. That, my friends, does a much better job of reflecting how good this game actually is. Triangle Strategy was everything I wanted it to be and more. It had challenging combat, interesting characters, a compelling story full of difficult decisions, and it was all wrapped up in a great-looking HD 2D package. After playing the demo a year ago, I was impressed. And I knew I would enjoy Triangle Strategy on release. But did I think I would enjoy it this much? Heck no. I didn't dare hope that it would be this good of a game. And of all the things I liked in Triangle Strategy, which is pretty much everything, it was the combat that I enjoyed the most. Heck, man, even during the setup phase, I was having a lot of fun. And that's because analyzing the battlefield is crucial to success in combat, and it was really enjoyable. I would always have different things to consider. For example, I would ask myself, is the enemy standing in water? Can I gain the high ground in this fight? Can I force the enemy into a bottleneck? These questions and more were always on my mind before a fight. There's no sending out 1 or 2 strong units to clear out a map in Triangle Strategy. The battles were too tight and balanced for that. If I got reckless with a few units, they died. So reading the battlefield and using the terrain to secure victory was a necessity, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. And this next part cannot be emphasized enough. The difficulty and balance of the game on my first playthrough on normal difficulty was perfect. And because of that balance, Triangle Strategy would really punish me sometimes, but it was never unfair about it, except those goddamn enemy reinforcements popping up out of nowhere and shit. Goddamn. Suffice to say, I quickly found out that approaching battle with patience and keeping my units in close proximity to one another was the key to staying alive. And this next part might sound like blasphemy to some of you, but the lack of a job system in this game works in its favor and makes it better. Don't get me wrong, job systems, love them. But in this case, the simple class promotion system ensures every character has a clearly defined role and skill set, which helps balance the combat system. I believe this allowed the developers to anticipate player behaviors and strategies more accurately, allowing them to anticipate player stratagems and plan accordingly, thereby resulting in more engaging and thrilling combat. And since every unit in the game was created with a distinct role in mind, every character has a specific set of abilities that makes them feel unique. And when characters' unique battlefield characteristics are combined with their often endearing and distinct personalities, it made using them in combat and learning more about them in the story that much better. Since everyone's so likable, I suppose it's a good thing then that you can bring up to 10 and sometimes even 12 characters with you into battle. These huge battles with so many characters fighting was so much fun. With so many of your own characters and just as many enemies, not even considering reinforcements, battles could be very long with multiple strategic phases. It was great fighting what sometimes seemed to be almost overwhelming odds, and never in a tactical role-playing game have I had to rely so heavily on inflicting status ailments on enemy units to keep myself alive. Having even a couple of enemy units out of commission for a turn or two could rapidly swing the balance in my favor. Triangle Strategy did a great job putting me on the back foot in terms of challenge, but it always made sure I had the tools to get myself out of a jam. It was just a matter of using the tools I had correctly. However, one issue I could see gamers potentially having with Triangle Strategy is the initial evenness between combat and other gameplay segments. Initially, combat does not last as long compared to later battles in the game, so the exploration, voting, and story segments can feel a little long. And this is from a guy who loves story. I think it's the combat's fault for being so fun, but thankfully the battles get so long eventually that the game balances itself out the further you get into it. Now, the story and the branching narrative decisions you can make, Jesus, where do I even begin? Okay, the story was amazing. The core narrative was so good that no matter the choice I made during the voting segments, it was always satisfying. As I got further immersed in the world and characters, the eventual choices I would have to make using the voting system made me rot with indecision and doubt more than once. It was not easy to see the right path forward, and the struggle between what was right and what was logical or practical was fierce, particularly when the moral decision was not the smartest one. I loved how almost all of the choices I had to make were difficult, because that way they weren't boring. And as a result, I was more invested in their consequences, good or bad. The compelling narrative themes chosen for Triangle Strategy's story and the great characters that had to wrestle with them was an experience every fan of the genre needs to have. I loved the topics being covered in Triangle Strategy's narrative: theocracy, equal opportunity, racism, slavery, hypocrisy, all being woven into the narrative in a compelling manner. And more than anything, politics rule Triangle Strategy's world. Marriage is a tool for power, and everyone is someone else's pawn. And navigating this complicated world was a cast of characters I loved. A flaw of Final Fantasy Tactics, in my opinion, was that after joining your party, characters that were part of the main story would disappear from the narrative. But in Triangle Strategy, many of them get side stories, fleshing out their personalities and motivations, while simultaneously showing how they relate to other characters. So they always feel present in the story and don't feel detached, which helped me appreciate them more. And the soundtrack was pretty good. Battle tracks would have me stop and take notice, and some of them had some awesome woodwind instrument performances. The best part of the soundtrack, though, was that unexpected boss theme transition that occurred mid-battle. And when that beat drops, whoo doggy, you knew things were about to get real. I can already tell you Triangle Strategy is going to be one of my best games of the year. It's a type of game that I've wanted on a regular basis for the last 20 years, but never really got, at least in this quality. The Fire Emblem series aside, I think it's the best tactical role-playing game since Final Fantasy Tactics. So that's saying something. So I was more than a little bummed when the credits started to roll, sitting there feeling depressed, sad it was all over. I thought, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do it again. Oh yeah, woo! I still needed to experience the golden route, recruit all the characters I'd missed, and see the branching paths I didn't choose. And having gone through it again, it was totally worth it. The best ending was satisfying. The branching paths I hadn't chose before were full of fun battles. And the characters I hadn't recruited the first time were fun to use in combat and a delight to get to know. My biggest complaint is I would have really loved a chapter select option so I could have instantly jumped to the branching story path decisions that I didn't make the first time. But that would have compromised the developer's decision to make New Game Plus a balanced experience to play through again. And I can't fault them for that because I really enjoyed it. I can safely say this is one of the most enjoyable New Game Plus experiences I've ever had with a game. But alas, all things must come to an end. And as great as it was, it's time to let this pillar of the tactical role-playing game genre to rest. Fuck it. There's no stopping now. Round 3, let's go!